Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. If you're enjoying these explorations, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell icon, so you don't miss out on future episodes. Today we're diving into something really vital, really foundational to India. It's agriculture.
It's a topic that's close to my heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's super relevant, right? Not just for anyone prepping for the UPSC exams, but for anyone who, wants a real grasp of the Indian economy.
It's essential.
Yeah, like whether you're a student, an investor, or just a curious citizen trying to be financially savvy.
Understanding Indian agriculture is key.
We've got this incredibly detailed document on Indian agriculture,
Mm.
and we're going to unpack it together, unearthing, hopefully, some really fascinating insights into how this whole sector works.
There's so much to uncover.
Right, and it's constantly evolving. So let's get started. What I find really fascinating is that Indian agriculture, it's not just an economic sector, right? It's so deeply woven into the lives of millions.
Absolutely. It's a way of life for a vast majority of the population. It's the primary source of livelihood.
It's mind-blowing to think about the sheer scale of it, the number of lives touched by this sector.
And it's huge.
And when you look closer, you realize it's not just about one type of farming either. There's incredible diversity in the way it's practiced across the country.
Our source highlights that, yeah. We have wetland, dryland, rain-fed, even mixed farming.
Which is so cool.
Really is. It shows the adaptability, the ingenuity of Indian farmers over centuries. They've tailored their practices to such diverse geographic and climatic conditions.
Yeah, it's remarkable. That mixed farming you mentioned, combining crops, livestock, other activities, it kind of reminds me of the permaculture movement that's getting popular globally.
It does.
Almost like India was ahead of the curve in sustainable farming in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But let's shift gears a bit. Something that really surprised me was the size of land holdings in India.
Ah, yes. That's a crucial point.
The document mentions that the majority of farms, a staggering 86.21%,
Huge percentage.
are classified as, wait for it, small and marginal.
Under 2 hectares.
That's tiny.
It is. This creates a unique set of challenges and opportunities that we wouldn't necessarily see in large-scale farming operations like in other parts of the world.
Yeah, totally different landscape. It really puts things in perspective, though, right? How these small farms contribute so significantly to the overall output.
It's amazing.
Speaking of land, it's obviously a resource that's seen a lot of changes over time. Land reforms have played a big role in shaping how Indian agriculture looks today.
Absolutely. India has a rich history of land reforms, really aimed at addressing historical inequalities in ownership and boosting that agricultural productivity.
Okay, so break that down for us. What kind of reforms are we talking about?
Well, they can be broadly categorized into 2 generations. The first generation, implemented after independence, focused on things like abolishing intermediaries, those zamindars,
I see.
bringing in tenancy reforms, redistributing land to the landless, promoting cooperative farming and land consolidation. It was about restructuring that agrarian system.
That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
So what about this second generation? What did they focus on?
Well, that emerged in more recent decades. And there's a shift towards a market-oriented approach. So modernizing land records, ensuring fair compensation for land acquisition, facilitating land leasing, even things like contract farming.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Trying to balance this social equity with economic efficiency.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the challenges we see in urban planning.
Absolutely. There are parallels.
But, we can't talk about agriculture without talking about water. It's essential. And India faces significant challenges on that front, right?
Water is the lifeblood of Indian agriculture. And you're right, it's a concern.
Like, we have 17% of the global population, but only 4% of the world's freshwater resources. It's a stark contrast.
It is. And to address that, India has implemented a range of irrigation schemes. From minor to major projects, all aimed at ensuring that crops get the water they need.
Our source specifically talks about the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana.
The PMKSY.
Yeah, PMKSY.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really critical umbrella scheme.
Oh, it is. Launched in 2015, aimed at, improving water access, enhancing irrigation efficiency, and promoting sustainable water conservation.
It's a big deal.
Right.
What are the key parts of this PMKSY? What does it actually involve?
Well, it has 2 main components. One is the Accelerated Irrigation Benefits Program.
AIVP.
Exactly. The other is Harket Kopani.
HKKP.
Yes, that's right. 2 very different sounding names, but both focused on that crucial element, water.
So what's the difference between the two? What do they each focus on?
Okay, so the AIBP, that's all about fast-tracking the completion of major and medium irrigation projects, the ones that have been stalled for various reasons.
Oh, okay. Making sure those past efforts actually deliver, right?
Exactly. Now, the HKKP, that has a broader scope. Think command area development, promoting microirrigation, groundwater development, restoring existing water bodies.
It's a more holistic approach then,
Ex
which makes sense given how water-intensive Indian agriculture can be.
mm-hmm.
Our source mentions this striking contrast between Indian and Chinese farmers. Apparently, Indian farmers use something like 3,000 to 5,000 liters of water to produce just 1 kilogram of rice, while
Wow.
Chinese farmers achieve the same output with just 350 liters.
That's a huge difference.
It's a stark reminder of the need for improving water efficiency, right?
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of initiatives like the PMKSY with its emphasis on micro irrigation and water conservation. There's huge scope for improvement.
And speaking of improving efficiency, it's impossible to talk about Indian agriculture without mentioning the Green Revolution.
Ah, yes, the Green Revolution. A turning point.
It completely transformed food production. How would you sum up its impact?
It was a paradigm shift. Introduction of high-yielding varieties of seeds, modern farming techniques. It led to a significant increase in food grain production, a response to those severe food shortages India faced after independence.
It's remarkable. Turning India from food deficient to a food surplus nation. That's thanks to, the dedication of our farmers and scientists.
It was a collaborative effort.
But something I was curious about, the document mentions India's seed bank. What's that all about?
Seed banks are fascinating. They're like insurance policies for biodiversity.
Okay.
They preserve a wide array of seeds, safeguarding against the loss of genetic diversity in our crops. India's seed bank, it's located high up in the cold desert of Ladakh,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
specifically designed to conserve seeds that thrive in harsh environments.
Smart, so we don't lose those valuable genetic resources.
Exactly. It's like a living library of genetic potential. It ensures that even if certain varieties are lost in the field, we have backups.
It's like a Noah's Ark for seeds.
Uh,
I love that. But, we've talked about land, we've talked about water, but farming is also a business.
right.
It needs financial support. So let's dive into that world. How is Indian agriculture supported financially?
There's a whole system of schemes and institutions. One of the most critical for farmers is the minimum support price, or MSP. It's a safety net for certain essential crops.
MSP, it's a term we hear a lot. But could you break that down? How does it actually work?
Sure. Essentially, it's a guaranteed minimum price that the government sets for certain crops. Think rice, wheat, pulses. It protects farmers from market volatility.
Okay, so if the market price for a crop drops below the MSP, the government steps in.
Exactly. They become a buyer of last resort, ensuring that farmers don't suffer huge losses, that they have a stable income.
So they can plan, invest, and just, have that security.
Exactly.
It's like a safety net that encourages them to keep growing those essential crops.
It is.
But how is the MSP actually decided? I imagine that's a pretty complex calculation.
Oh, it is, and that's where the Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices comes in. They're the ones who recommend the MSPs for various crops.
CACP.
They analyze a whole bunch of factors, like cost of production, supply and demand, market trends, even the potential impact on consumers.
So it's a balancing act.
It is, trying to be fair to both farmers and consumers.
Makes sense. So the government sets the MSP based on the CACP's recommendations. And if market prices fall below that, they step in to buy. But I've also been hearing a lot about market reforms in Indian agriculture. What are those all about?
That's a great segue. So historically, agricultural markets have been regulated by agricultural produce market committees, or APMCs. They manage physical marketplaces, called mandis, where farmers bring their produce to sell.
Okay, so it was meant to create organized markets.
Yeah, prevent exploitation by intermediaries.
Makes sense. But I've also heard there are some downsides to this APMC system. What are those?
Over time, there have been criticisms. It's become fragmented, inefficient. There's a lot of bureaucracy, and farmers have limited market access. They're stuck selling within their designated APMC area.
So it might have created some roadblocks. What's being done to address that?
One of the biggest changes in recent years has been the introduction of the ENAM platform.
ENAM, what's that?
It stands for Electronic National Agriculture Market. Basically, it's a digital marketplace that connects farmers directly to buyers across India, bypassing those physical limitations of mandis.
So it's like taking the mandi's online. That's cool. What are the benefits for farmers?
Huge benefits. More control over their sales, better price transparency, and they can access a much larger market.
It gives them more power. It's
Exactly.
connecting them directly with consumers. I can see why that's a game changer. But, Indian agriculture is so much more than just food grains.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got such a diverse landscape of crops and products.
It's amazing. And we've witnessed several revolutions that have diversified the sector further.
Right, like the White Revolution, the Blue Revolution, the Yellow Revolution.
Exactly. The White Revolution made India the world's largest milk producer, thanks to visionaries like Dr. Verghese Kurian. The Blue Revolution boosted our fish production, and the Yellow Revolution focused on increasing oilseed production.
It's a rainbow of revolutions.
Each one has contributed to food security and boosted farmers' incomes.
And speaking of innovations, there's a lot of buzz these days about the zero-budget natural farming movement.
DBNF.
Yeah, ZBNF. It seems like a really promising alternative to conventional practices. What's the idea behind it?
It's all about minimizing external inputs like those chemical fertilizers and pesticides and going back to natural farming techniques.
So working with nature, not against it.
Exactly. Using locally available resources, creating a self-sustaining ecosystem on the farm.
So how does that actually work? How do you achieve good yields without those external inputs?
One of the key elements is using Jivamrutha, this fermented concoction of cow dung, urine, jaggery, pulse flour, and water.
Okay.
It's packed with beneficial microorganisms.
So it's like a probiotic for the soil.
Exactly. It enriches the soil, promotes healthy plant growth.
I love that. What about pest control? How do you handle that naturally?
There's another preparation called bijamrita. It's a mix of neem leaves, tobacco, green chilies, and cow dung.
Okay.
Acts as a natural pest repellent, helps protect those crops from diseases.
It's amazing how these traditional practices are being revived and adapted.
Not proving to be very effective.
ZBNF seems like more than just a farming method. It's a whole philosophy.
It is. It's about understanding that interconnectedness of all elements in the farming system.
And speaking of systems, we talked about MSP, but what other financial mechanisms are there to support farmers in India?
There are quite a few. A key one is priority sector lending, where banks are required to allocate a certain percentage of their loans to priority sectors, and agriculture is one of them.
So it ensures farmers have access to credit.
Exactly. Then we have NABARD, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. They provide financial assistance and development programs specifically for the agricultural sector.
Makes sense. Any other institutions that play a role?
We have regional rural banks, or RRBs, operating in rural areas, catering to the banking needs of farmers. And of course, cooperative societies have been a pillar of support for farmers for decades, providing credit and other essential services.
It sounds like a comprehensive system. Are there any specific schemes that stand out?
The Kizan credit card scheme has been a game changer.
Okay.
It provides easy access to short-term credit for purchasing inputs like seeds and fertilizers.
So it's like a credit card tailored for farmers.
Exactly. Then there's the PM Kisan scheme, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, which provides direct financial support in the form of cash transfers.
So direct cash transfers to help them meet expenses, invest, improve their financial well-being.
Exactly.
It's like a safety net.
It is, and it's not just the central government. Many states have implemented their own innovative schemes as well.
Like what?
Telangana has the Raithu Bandhu scheme, providing direct assistance per acre of land. Odisha has the Kalia scheme, offering a mix of income support, crop insurance, and support for diversifying livelihoods.
It's good to see that kind of state-level initiative. But, farming isn't just about income, right? It's about long-term security, especially as farmers get older.
That's a crucial point, and that's where the PM Kisan Man Dhan Yojana steps in.
Okay, Man Dhan Yojana. That's a new one for me. What's that about?
Think of it as a pension scheme specifically for small and marginal farmers,
I did that.
designed to provide them with a regular income after they reach 60.
Like a Social Security for farmers. That's a great idea. Is it fully government funded, or do farmers contribute too?
It's voluntary and contributory. Farmers make regular contributions and the government matches those. Creates a more sustainable system.
Smart approach. It encourages long-term planning and gives them ownership over their future.
Exactly.
But let's face it, farming is inherently risky.
It is.
What about protection from things like natural disasters, market fluctuations?
That's where crop insurance comes in. The Pradhan Mantri Faisal Bima Yojana, or PMFBY, is a major scheme that aims to provide that financial support if crops are lost.
So it protects them from those uncertainties.
Exactly.
How does it work? Do farmers pay premiums, or is it fully government funded?
Farmers pay a nominal premium, and the government subsidizes a significant portion of the cost.
Okay.
The scheme covers a wide range of crops and risks, natural disasters, pests, diseases.
That must be a huge relief for farmers, knowing they have that coverage. Allows them to focus on their work without constantly worrying.
It does. It provides a sense of security.
It's impressive, really, how all these schemes and institutions come together to support Indian agriculture.
It's a complex system.
But what about the global picture? How does India engage with the world when it comes to agricultural trade?
India plays a big role in global agricultural trade, both as an exporter and importer. We export things like rice, spices, tea, coffee, even fruits and vegetables, and we import certain commodities like edible oils to meet our domestic demands.
So a two-way street, contributing to the global food supply while also meeting our own needs.
Exactly.
What's being done to promote those agricultural exports?
The Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority, APIDA, they're a key player.
FADA.
Yeah. They support exporters, help them meet international quality standards, explore new markets.
They're like our agricultural ambassadors.
Pretty much.
But what about the challenges? What do Indian farmers face in the international market?
One of the biggest hurdles is meeting those strict quality standards and regulations of importing countries. There are also issues with logistics, infrastructure, market access. It's not always easy.
So it's about more than just producing good stuff. It's navigating a whole web of regulations and logistics.
Absolutely.
And what about the impact of global agreements,
Yeah.
like the WTO?
The WTO agreements have had a significant impact, especially on areas like domestic support, market access, export subsidies. It's an ongoing debate, really, how to balance the interests of Indian farmers with the rules of global trade.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
We want to protect our farmers while also participating in that global economy.
Exactly.
It's clear that Indian agriculture is constantly evolving, right? We've
Yeah.
covered so much, from ancient practices to modern technologies, from small farms to global markets. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And it really highlights the resilience and adaptability of the sector. We've seen the challenges, the opportunities, the reforms, the innovations, the institutions, the policies, all shaping this vital sector.
And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is just the sheer diversity and complexity of Indian agriculture.
Right.
It's a sector deeply intertwined with the lives of millions, the economy, and the environment.
We've learned about land reforms, irrigation, the Green Revolution, those different farming systems, and of course, all the financial mechanisms that support farmers. It's been a really eye-opening exploration.
It has, and it's crucial that we recognize the ingenuity and hard work of Indian farmers.
Absolutely. They play such a vital role in feeding the nation and contributing to the global food system.
They really do.
We'll continue our deep dive into Indian agriculture in the next part.
Can't wait.
But for now, a huge thank you to you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. Until next time, keep learning and keep diving deep.
And that's where the PM Kisan Mantan Yokana comes in.
Okay, Madandan Yokana, that's a new one for me. What's that all about?
Think of it as a pension scheme, specifically for those small and marginal farmers, to give them some income security after they reach 60.
Like a Social Security program, but for farmers. That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Is it entirely government funded? Or do farmers contribute as well?
It's a voluntary scheme, and they contribute. Farmers make regular payments into this pension fund, and the government matches those contributions.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just a handout. It's a more sustainable system, right?
Exactly. It encourages long-term planning,
Right.
gives farmers that sense of ownership over their future.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about the risks that are just inherent in farming. What about protection against crop losses? From things like natural disasters or just market fluctuations.
That's where crop insurance comes in.
Right.
The Pradhan Mantri Faisal Bima Yojana.
PMFBY for sure?
PMFBY, yep. That's a major scheme. It's designed to provide that financial support if a farmer experiences crop losses.
So it's like a safety net against those uncertainties.
Exactly.
How does it work? Do farmers pay premiums? Or is it fully funded by the government?
They pay a nominal premium, but The government subsidizes a big chunk of the cost.
Ah, okay.
And the scheme, it covers a wide range of crops and risks, natural disasters, pests, diseases.
It must be such a relief for farmers to know they have that coverage.
It allows them to, focus on their work without that constant worry about potential losses.
It's really impressive when you look at it, how all these different schemes and institutions work together. They create this pretty comprehensive support system for Indian agriculture.
It's a complex web, but it's designed to address the multifaceted needs of the sector.
Definitely. But let's zoom out a bit. What about the global aspect? How does India engage with the world in terms of agricultural trade?
India is a big player in global trade, both as an exporter and importer.
Okay, so we're on both sides of it.
Yep. We export a variety of products: rice, spices, tea, coffee, even fruits and vegetables are making their way into international markets.
Wow, that's great. So we're contributing to the global food supply.
We are, but at the same time, we also import certain commodities, things like edible oils and pulses, just to meet our domestic demand.
Makes sense. So it's a two-way street.
Exactly, balancing our own needs with our role in the global market.
So what's being done to promote those Indian agricultural exports?
There's a specific organization dedicated to that: the Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is. APIDA for short.
Okay, EPA.
They provide a lot of support to exporters, helping them meet international quality standards, exploring new markets for Indian products.
So they're like our agricultural ambassadors to the world.
Pretty much.
But what about the challenges? What do Indian farmers face when trying to compete in that international market?
One of the biggest hurdles is meeting those strict quality standards and regulations that importing countries have.
Right, makes sense.
And there are also issues related to logistics, infrastructure, even just getting access to those markets.
So it's not just about producing high-quality goods, it's about navigating a whole complex system.
Exactly. It's a multi-layered challenge.
And I'm also curious about the impact of global agreements, like the WTO.
Mhm.
How do those affect Indian agriculture?
The WTO agreements have definitely had an impact, especially in areas like domestic support, market access, even export subsidies.
It sounds complicated.
It is. There's a constant debate on how to balance the interests of Indian farmers with the rules of that global trading system.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Protecting our own while participating in the global economy.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process.
Well, it's clear that Indian agriculture is constantly evolving. We've seen that throughout our conversation, from those ancient practices to the latest technologies, from small farms to the complexities of global markets. It's been quite a journey so far.
It really has. And it just goes to show the resilience and adaptability of Indian agriculture. We've seen the challenges and the opportunities, the reforms and the innovations, the institutions and the policies, all shaping this vital sector.
It's a fascinating world, and one that we'll continue to explore in the next part of our deep dive.
It's a fascinating world, and one that we'll continue to explore now as we wrap up our deep dive.
Yeah, let's bring it all together. What are some key takeaways? If our listeners could only remember a few things from this whole conversation, what would you want those to be?
I think the biggest takeaway is the sheer diversity and complexity of Indian agriculture.
We've definitely seen that.
It's not a monolithic thing. It's a sector deeply intertwined with the lives of millions, the economy, the environment.
We've touched on so much, from land reforms to irrigation, the green revolution, the variety of farming systems, and of course, all those financial mechanisms that support farmers. It's been a real eye-opener for me, to be honest.
It's a lot to take in, but it's crucial to understand these different aspects, to appreciate the ingenuity and hard work of Indian farmers.
Absolutely. They play such a vital role, not just in feeding the nation, but contributing to the global food system as well.
It's a huge responsibility.
And one that they shoulder with incredible resilience and adaptability. We've seen that throughout history. And it's continuing today with all these new challenges and opportunities.
Exactly. Indian agriculture is dynamic. It's constantly evolving.
And we've seen that firsthand in our deep dive. From those ancient practices to cutting-edge technologies, small family farms to the complexities of global trade. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And it's a journey that's far from over.
That's for sure. And we've only scratched the surface. But hopefully this has given our listeners a better understanding of this vital sector.
That's the goal.
A huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another deep dive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more insightful explorations. Until next time, keep learning and keep diving deep.